Hi, I'm Megen Musegades.
And I am Jenna Reilly. We are the directors, producers, and writers for Mars 2060, the Colony Files podcast.
With all this extra time on people's hands who are staying at home during the self-quarantine, that maybe this would be a good time to reintroduce you to the Mars 2060 podcast. So we kind of wanted to just give you a little background on how this whole thing came about.
So I had this idea of having some sort of survival story that took place on Mars for a little while, but I wasn't quite sure what medium I wanted to explore with it. So Megen and I had worked on a previous project that we spent a lot of time on writing it. We wanted to make it, and then it was just very complicated, ended up becoming this big project that we weren't able to produce ourselves. So it occurred to me that podcasts were becoming so popular, including fictional podcasts, audio dramas. So I brought up the idea that we could take this survival story and make it into a podcast.
First of all, Jenna and I always think we're starting off something simple, and by the time we finish it, it's this complex thing. So our little podcast about being on Mars brought in 33 actors, I think is what we ended up with.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. We spent a whole summer kind of recording and editing the podcast. And we also, there's a lot of research that went behind this podcast because I didn't know anything about space travel or Mars. Jenna knew a little more than me because her husband worked for JPL, and he helped us out a lot with the project.
Yes, he was very much a special consultant, probably more times than he wanted to be.
We also got an interview with Al Holland, who is a psychologist that works for NASA, and he's focusing right now working on long-range space travel. And that was really fascinating as well, because a lot of the issues we learned with this kind of travel, it has to do with our own minds.
We see a lot of sci-fi stories out there that really focus on the technical issues, because that's also fascinating and so interesting. But Megen and I wanted to get into the kind of nitty-gritty on a human level. What is that kind of experience like? And we discovered, as she was saying, it's all so much psychological issues that go into preparing a person for long-term confinement and space travel and leaving home, possibly forever, and then preparing someone for that whole time, but also keeping up with them. That's part of what employees and specialists at the space agencies work on as well, is keeping up with people as they're traveling and going through everything. So there's always a conversation going on, open communication, because so many things can go wrong in here.
As I think a lot of us are discovering even more so during this self-quarantine, like, we're not on a spaceship for 9 months, but, we are stuck in our homes. So
yeah,
I guess we're kind of experiencing that a little bit. I was looking back at when we wrote this, we kind of worked on our themes, and we talked about one of the things we've always been fascinated with are stories of survival and the courage of everyday people, which we're seeing right now too with our grocery store workers and truck drivers. I mean, obviously along with the medical staff, nurses and doctors, and everyone. Also, Jenna and I have both been close to mass tragedies. I was in New York during 9/11, and Jenna was at school in Virginia Tech during the shooting. And what really stuck out for us, what we take with us, is the way that the communities rebuilt themselves and how we kind of helped each other through it and came out stronger.
There's something so nice about a community coming together in a way it never has before, and people really being there for each other.
We're planning on bringing you some little video clippets of Jenna and I before the different episodes that we're gonna reintroduce you to. So this is episode 1. And we just thought we would share, you know, some of our favorite lines or characters from each episode. So, I mean, Jenna, I think we were talking about the first interview with Commander Whitfield had one of your favorite lines.
Yes. I love when he's talking about what it was like for him when he first was able to get off the spaceship and go onto Mars, the surface of Mars. And my character, the reporter, had asked him, was everything set up for you the way you wanted? And he responds with this description of how it felt to be looking around at a lot of things he had been instrumental in planning and putting together, but then actually seeing it all for the first time. And he says, have you ever dreamt you were in a place that seemed completely familiar at the time, but then you wake up and realize you've never been there in real life? And I love that line so much because we all have dreams and we can all relate to that feeling. Even though this is some extreme situation that is all fiction, no one has ever actually done this, it's still a way that we can all relate to a feeling. And that's something we worked on a lot in the whole podcast, was trying to find ways for people to relate to what seems like an outrageous situation that you would never experience, but to help all our listeners have an in to relate and feel that feeling.
Totally. Yeah, my favorite line from episode 1, or one of them, is with Colin Kepper, and it's just an interesting thought that before they got on the ship, he took his last breath of what we all think of as fresh air, fresh earth air, because he was just going to remain on Mars, and all the air you're going to breathe from then on is manufactured. It's not, you can't step outside without a whole, you know, spacesuit on with air pumping in, oxygen pumping in. So that was just an interesting and a little terrifying thought for me. I don't think I could do that.
No. And it also makes me think of the little things that we take for granted until they're taken away. We're very used to just opening the front door and stepping outside and being able to breathe, but when you're on Mars, you can't do that. You have to be wearing tons of protective gear, go through an airlock. It's a whole process just to step outside, and then you're not just breathing the air.
Yeah.
And it's like a thing we're experiencing now, where we're also used to being able to just go to the grocery store, go shopping, go get gas, drive around, and you can't anymore. You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
And so it's strange to feel that taken away, because it seems like such a simple thing that we're all so used to, gone. Thank you so much for checking out this video. We hope you enjoy the show, and we are looking forward to bringing you some more behind the scenes looks into how we made this.
Bye.